to set her on the right path. But according to the Baltimore Police Union, and police, that's a whole nother issue and story for another day about these civil servant unions. But they say that the state attorney, Marilyn Mosby, has conflicts of interest because of her reported personal connection to the Gray family and her marriage to a city councilman. Now, in a stern letter released just minutes before Mosby announced charges against 6 officers in the troubling case, Gene Ryan, president of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 3, declared none were responsible for Gray's April 19th death in a confrontation that has been both shocking and frightening to the public, as reported in the Baltimore Sun. Now, he said, lost in the horror of Gray's death and the rioting and looting it triggered, however, were the officers' own sorrow. Now, I am sure that, if not all, at least some of them were probably, look, when a good cop has somebody die in their custody or at their hands, they feel it. It's not something that they want to do. And this is why sometimes when police officers, many of them, when they take a life for the first time, they get physically ill and need lots of counseling, because it's devastating. Every cop pretty much joins the force knowing that someday they could be the one to take somebody's life. They know this. Now, most cops will not experience that, but those that do, many of those that do, they have this tremendous remorse. They get physically ill, and they often need a good amount of counseling. This is why they have every time that there's a fatal incident involving police officers, that those officers involved who are directly related to the fatal incident have to receive counseling, because it's devastating to them. No, they're human beings. They have some remorse. It's not like, military, even though a lot of military people also, when they first go into battle and kill people, they kind of get sick, physically ill. And it's also why that they need counseling when they come back from war, because it's taking another person's life. I can't even imagine what that's like, what runs through a person's mind. Now, sure, there are people that are just deadpan evil and don't give a damn when they kill somebody, and those types of people you should be very wary of indeed. But most people, they have a heart and soul, and they have a hard time coping with that. They don't want to do to be involved in a fatal, and a lot of times it's a spur of the moment life or death situation, but when it happens, they have some deep sorrow. And it's not unusual, by the way, for police officers to, once they're involved in a fatal incident, for them either to voluntarily leave the patrol part of the force and take a desk job, or just leave the force altogether. It's not it's not. It doesn't happen the majority of the time, but it's not unusual for that to happen. And that simply means that even the police have a heart and they care, and that they don't want to be put in a position where they actually have to be involved in taking someone's life. That's not what they're there about. Now, don't get me wrong. So, if they, sometimes, they may chuckle about giving you a little jab because you piss them off. And a lot of times they'll get away with that little jab. And again, they're just human. I mean, how many times, you got somebody in hand. I'm not talking about you have somebody in handcuffs and they're down on the ground, handcuffed, that you start stomping on their heads or their backs or something. But, every once in a while, you'll even see it. They got somebody in handcuffs and they're putting him in the car, and they allow that person's head to lightly bang on the door frame. Or it's just normal. And it's not funny, I know, but it is in showing that cops are human too. And trust me, they do not do it in such a way that they're going to knock a person out or leave a mark on them. They just, might normally when they have their hand in a certain position, they're putting somebody in the car, they might slightly adjust the hand so the head can, tap the door frame. I've seen it happen. And it actually, sometimes it is kind of funny because they reserve it for people who really are, when they're being put under arrest, they really are a pain, and they might even have harmed the officer. A lot of people do not, when they get arrested, a lot of them don't actually get charged with the full range of crimes that they could be, like an assaulting an officer. If you bite an officer, he has the right to charge you for assault. Most cops don't do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Most of the time, they do not add that charge. They just don't. I don't know why. Unless you're just totally out of control, they don't, even sometimes when you're totally out of control and they've got to like hog tie you, they can still charge you with assault, and they don't do it. But yet when somebody happens to die in their custody, because maybe it is totally Mr. Gray's fault, we don't know yet. We're going to treat them like they're second-class citizens? I mean, really? This is not what America's about. I know some people are saying, well, see, Rod, you're out there just proving that these cops are out of control. No, they're not. I'm sorry, if you let somebody get a small knot in their head that goes away in a day or two, you're not abusing them. Especially if if you injured the cop in some way, and he is definitely not going to charge you with assault, which he very well could. I think that he's kind of, he's being kind of human. If he can charge you with something and he doesn't do it, I think he's showing a little bit of humanity there. Quite simple. Now, I'm not talking about the cop that hauls off and knocks you out with a punch while you're fully restrained and in custody. I'm not talking about that. But let's face it, sometimes if somebody, and it happens a lot, by the way. Ask police officers. When people kick them or bite them. It happens a lot. And yet they do not charge those people with an assault or any other crime. I find it, why not? Because they're human. They have some humanity. And sometimes they understand, even though the person might be a real criminal and, might not be a violent criminal, might be a drug user or something. They understand people's plights. And they understand that whatever that they're being arrested for is probably enough, that they don't need to add insult to injury. So cops do have a heart. I've seen it. I've seen it personally with my own two eyes a lot. And we know it happens nationwide, this same thing. We know it does. But we don't give our police officers credit for that. We don't. That's sad. That's more than sad. That's inhumane. Plain and simple. And so when a tragedy like this happens, look, I fully understand people's anger because they don't know all the facts. They don't know what's happened. There's speculation. Their imaginations run wild. And it is mainly due to all this false narrative that you have these rare few cops out there who really are bad cops, bad seeds, that do things that the media blows out of proportion, and then they attach this negative connotation to all cops. And all of a sudden, all cops are out there beating on citizens and causing them to have serious injuries and don't give them medical attention or assistance, and they end up dying and blah. It's all cops are bad. And this is why we have all this rioting, because all cops are bad. And it's this narrative from the lamestream media that has foisted this type of ridiculous idiocy. When you just look at the sheer numbers of interactions with the police, well, first of all, that should tell you something right there. If we have this overwhelming number of negative interactions with cops, maybe we've got a problem with having too many laws. But I digress on that. Why, look, I am not going to be the one out there saying, you know what, from now on, Mr. Officer, if somebody assaults you in any way that you can possibly charge them for assault, just do it. I'm not going to say that. That would clog our courts for one. And it's not really going to help the situation. It might make it worse for that individual who might just need, a small kick in the pants to straighten him out, like the kid in whose mother came and got him during the riots. Now, I'm going to say that the kid is probably going to behave himself at least for a little while and stay out of trouble for at least a little while. And it might be enough to get him to the point where he actually graduates from school and tries to make a life for himself. This is all some people need. They get arrested for a stupid little crime they did, nonviolent maybe, and the arrest, that one particular charge changes their whole life and they turn it around. So the cops fully understand that this is a possibility, and they're not going to add insult to injury. Because frankly, most cops do not want to rearrest the same person over and over again. They don't. They want them to be law-abiding citizens. Now, again, I'm not making excuses for those who truly are bad cops. We need to remove them. Absolutely. But when you have officers who are doing their job, doing it to the best of their ability, they even may have a little bit of a heart. Okay, so that, look, maybe they didn't seatbelt the guy in. Yeah, evidently, that's against the law. So the officer driving, well, he should be punished for that. But, he wasn't running a gauntlet. So it's not as if this guy was like banging off the roof and the walls in the paddy wagon. The cop may have, stopped a little bit hard and caused him to lose his balance, and maybe he did bang up against one of the walls a little bit. I don't think it's enough for him to sever his spine. You know what the cop's got to do that? But these charges for these 6 officers are way, way, way overkill. There isn't currently the evidence that they have shown us, that they have talked about, that meets the requirements for these charges. Look, if they don't have the evidence to meet these charges, I can't even see, except for the most radical liberal judge, not throwing these things out of court, not throwing the charges out. I can't see it. Can't see them not doing that. So the police union went on to say, not one of the officers involved in this tragic situation left home in the morning with the anticipation that someone with whom they interacted would not go home that night. Now, as tragic as the situation is, none of the officers involved are responsible for the death of Mr. Gray. And at this juncture, with the current information that we have, I would tend to agree with the police union. And if everybody who's involved in the riots would stop feeling for 5 seconds and just use their thought process, their ability to actually be logical, I think 99% of them would also see that there probably isn't enough information to justify these charges. No way, no how. I don't see how you come to that conclusion. Not with the limited amount of information that we currently have. There's just no way. No way I know, but we're talking about liberalism, and liberalism is all about feeling. It isn't about fact at all. And that, again, is not justice either. Justice is all about fact.